Chelsea's game against Manchester United on Sunday has been postponed at a week's notice. This was announced on Sunday. This is due to the scheduling of Chelsea's first Champions League group stage game against Real Madrid on Tuesday the 8th. So their game against Manchester United was on Sunday the 6th. So obviously 2 days difference between those fixtures, the WSL fixture and the Champions League fixtures. It was obviously announced. There was mixed reaction to it, which we'll get stuck into in a little bit. We could see a situation of me and Rachel playing good cop, bad cop, but roughly we're in the same boat. Chelsea were in discussion to seek an amicable solution to the scheduling conflict. They said, "We are extremely disappointed with the outcome, but wish to reiterate that player welfare and the impact on our supporters are of the utmost importance to us." The game had already sold out. This will obviously be a big frustration to the fans. From the Women's Professional Leagues Limited, i.e. NUCO, which runs the WSL and the Women's Championship, in their statement, they said, "We apologise for any inconvenience to fans. In this instance, we have to put player welfare first."
No one is questioning that. No one is questioning player welfare. No one is sitting here going, they should play 2 days later. So putting that into the response is frustrating because no one is actually questioning that.
Let's get stuck into the frustration first from fans. I can see that you're eager to to go at the timing of the announcement. But I will say, from our perspective, putting it out on our channels, we did see a very mixed bag of reactions. Our initial stance and my personal stance was that, first and foremost, I was super happy that some consideration had been given to player welfare, which we hadn't necessarily seen in previous seasons. And how many times do we have the same conversations about overscheduling leading to injuries, players coming to the end of the season being super fatigued with FA Cup fixtures, Champions League fixtures, WSL fixtures, Conti Cup being thrown in there somewhere, and also going into a massive major international tournament in the summer. So from my perspective, I was like, yeah, 100% a good thing. But we did obviously see a lot of frustration, and rightly so, from fans thinking, this was a very last minute thing. We've spent a lot of money. The timing of this, I mean, Rach, you have quite...
No, I just think they were never going to have the teams play 2 days later. That was never something that was going to happen. No one was ever suggesting it happen. No one was ever floating that idea or putting it forward and saying, let's see how we get on. But they're never going to play games 2 days apart. So we knew the calendar for almost a year. We knew what days Champions League were going to be on. And I think then if you know that's going to happen and there is a 50% chance that you're going to be playing a game on Tuesday, you factor that into the scheduling.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I appreciate that this is a broadcast pick, which makes it more difficult. But I would say Chelsea have been the broadcast pick every week so far. So if you just choose a different team, I understand you want to... This is a big game and it's an exciting game, but you have Chelsea Crystal Palace last week, you had Chelsea Aston Villa the first week, not the absolute end of the world. Showcase a different team for a while. Like, it's not, shouldn't be the main decision making process. You could have moved the game back. I mean, look, we don't know what the pitches were like, but Chelsea own Kingsmeadow.
Mm-hmm.
So, play it on Friday night, play it on Saturday. I think it is frustrating for fans, like the timing of the announcement, and as though it was a surprise, I think is what frustrates everyone, because we all knew when the fixtures are at.
For sure.
So just a bit of foresight.
Yes.
That's all it takes. Look at a calendar. We know they're going to be happening. We know Chelsea. It's not like Arsenal, Man City. Are we going to make it through? We don't know. We know Chelsea are in the group stages.
So let's take a little bit of a look about how this happened. UEFA published its match calendar a year ago. The WPLL had been in contact with UEFA prior to the draw, requesting that no English team be scheduled to play on October 8th. But the Champions League draw principles mean that the top 2 seeded clubs from a country have to play on different days of every match week. So
why should UEFA change their planning for one league when that league could change their planning? Do you know what I mean? Like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are always Champions League days. That's just what they are. And the way the calendar is set out is that the first round of matches in a window or whatever, in a section, the way we have them every month, is Tuesday, Wednesday,
Mm-hmm.
and the next ones are Wednesday, Thursday. That's just the way it's always been. And if 3 teams are in the Champions League, how do you not have one of those teams playing on one of those days? I just think it's wild to think that, and I'm happy to lay things at UEFA's door, but I do think it's wild to think that UEFA should change the thing that's always been the same rather than just moving one match.
100%. No, I've got to agree with you on that point. I think we also saw a lot of backlash from Arsenal fans who got involved in the debate in a slightly different way, with a slightly more Arsenal-centric hat on. They were saying, well, because the Chelsea game has been moved to accommodate their Champions League fixture, shouldn't the Arsenal? Well, that's kind of preferential treatment to Chelsea. Why are we not moving the Arsenal WSL fixture because they have a game against Bayern in the Champions League group stage on the 9th, on the Wednesday?
Yeah, 3 days.
Yeah. But I think there does need to be a clear kind of set on what the gap then is.
It's 3 days. We know that, like a minimum of 3 days. It's always been the case. And I think with respect to Arsenal, I can understand it being frustrating because Chelsea play Arsenal the following weekend. And you could say now Chelsea have a better preparation. They have a week off. They've got a home game against Real Madrid. The decision in this particular situation has nothing to do with Arsenal.
Do we think there is something around, obviously, the WPLL going through a massive period of transition? I mean, they've just brought in a completely new staff, completely new board, completely new head. There's a lot of stuff going on this summer in terms of just being able to legally transition from the FA to the league. Things like this, are we going to see potentially more mistakes like this as we sort of go through this transitional year?
I hope not. Champions League isn't new. Scheduling issues aren't new.
I'm just trying to find a silver lining. I'm trying to find some understanding, I think, from the WPL.
I get it. I just think it's frustrating. And I mean, in general anyway, like when I say I'll lay things at UEFA's door, I think the Champions League scheduling is really difficult. You know, you find out a week before that you're going to be travelling somewhere, whether you're fans, whether you're media covering it, whether you're the clubs trying to get these games on, you've got a week's notice when you find out who's in your group and where you're going to be playing when. Like that in itself is wild. It's such a short turnaround. But I think in this instance, as we said, those dates were available a year ago. There was a 50% chance that this was going to happen. And I'm assuming the WPLL are the ones that determine the league fixtures.
I've tried to put forward a case.
I know.
I'm like WPLL. I've tried.
I can understand the broadcast situation. It's a big game you want to broadcast, but on the other side of it, I'm like, you've done Chelsea every week, so if this is a week you miss and you do a different team.
Well, let's touch a little bit on the broadcast point, because I do think there's a very valid point sort of mixed into all of this that you mentioned before, which is around the scheduling of those games that are broadcast and how preferential treatment probably has been given to Chelsea.
Why did you put on Chelsea Crystal Palace?
I mean, I quite liked that fixture. It was kind of like a top of the league versus a new entrant. I could understand, and it could have. Those are one of those games that you think it could have ended up being a super close game that we didn't then capture, or it could have ended up being Crystal Palace completely destroy Chelsea. Like it's one of those games that could have been ripe for something
really
pretty dramatic to happen.
I think I understand why we had Chelsea Aston Villa was the opening game of the season the previous week.
I'm just trying to play devil's advocate with
I
some of these points.
I understand it, but I think I understand that you want to get views and you've got targets to meet, and you know, particularly in women's football, you have to prove you can do it before you get the friggin' backing. It's like putting the cart before the horse. But the only way to build the interest in the audiences in other teams is to put them on show. Like imagine doing the Bobby Bowl battle at Villa Park.
Now that I'm sort of more of a part of this industry at the moment, it is really difficult when it's like the highest levels of engagement, the highest level of reach, the highest level of views and impressions and things like that do happen with the top 4 teams.
Agreed.
So it's really super hard when you're trying to kind of build a business or build a kind of business case for things when you put on those lower league teams that don't do so well, but you're doing it kind of from a, you know that you should. It's kind of like the moral and ethical side is kind of balanced a little bit with the business side.
I totally understand that, but sure, we all take a hit, and we all have to take a hit.
I am not saying that we should.
Stories.
I'm not saying in any way, shape, or form that we should only show Chelsea and Arsenal on the Sky Games. I'm not saying that at all. I do think there needs to be more variation and balance. But I think just to give some context to the argument, we can understand the kind of business case for doing that. But in order to grow the league as a whole and to make sure that revenue and, you know, eyes and attention and bums on seats are happening for those clubs that don't get the kind of press coverage that the top 4 teams do, we need to make it more fair. There is no point just putting the top 4 on a pedestal and everyone else can kind of like fend for themselves. So yeah, completely understand. Yeah.
But like, you know, that's not, you know, taking digs at people who are doing very hard work and doing their best to promote the game. But I think given we all now work in the industry, we all know that at times you have to take a hit with a story that might not get as much coverage or engagement, but absolutely deserves to be told.
Yeah, 100%. And it's things like that sort of, you know, even relay further into the championship as well. I mean, we know sort of from our work in social media now, when you cover the championship teams, they don't necessarily get the kind of the audience and the figures and things that you would like them to. But do we want to promote the championship? 100%. Like both of us do. Like it's a really important league. It feeds into the ecosystem.
So engage is the message to you, because you get people on social media complaining about the imbalance in coverage. And then when you do get those stories out, they don't get the clicks, the retweets, the shares. So engage with that stuff. That helps, writers when they go to their editors to pitch a story.
Absolutely.
Because if you're saying, I'm going to tell the story and it'll get 4 retweets or whatever and not that many eyes, what's the editor going to choose when you're already working on a shoestring budget?
100%. We can all do better. Let's engage with the championship. Let's engage with the teams that don't get as much coverage. And hopefully we can all do a bit better in that space.